Okay, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about work-life balance. Is that even possible? I have brought Christy along with me, and she's going to zoom in from the US. So we are a family of 6 that have moved to New Zealand from the US, and we're kind of talking about the differences living in New Zealand compared to the US, and today specifically work-life balance.
What is that my forehead? That just, oh my, is
That.
that a line in my forehead? Oh, sorry. Side note, sorry. Hey, girl.
Oh, welcome back. Hey, YouTube
Welcome
channel.
back.
Okay, today we're going to talk a little bit about work-life balance. This is my friend Christy, as you all loved in my previous video. If you haven't seen it, I put the link above us. So today, let's talk a little bit about us, how we got to know each other, and then we're going to go in and talk about work-life balance.
Oh yeah, I forget these people have no
They don't know us.
idea.
So me and Christy met in our 20s. We didn't go to the same university, but we were in the same town. And so we kind of became friends from church, I believe. And and so we just thought that we'd share a little bit about us so you get to know us through the journey every time that we do a video. So the story that we wanted to talk about today was New Year's Eve,
New Year's Eve.
2000.
It was called Y2K.
Yeah,
people.
Y2K.
Yeah, the people in their 40s and above know Y2K was like, seriously, it was like the zombie apocalypse, end of the world. People are you thought the toilet paper was bad during the Rona? People are buying up water like reserves. They got the little thing underneath their basement so they can hide in case, somebody's coming for them. Yeah, it was nuts. So, of course, what we did in our 20s during Y2K, my husband and I drove to Milwaukee to be with Dan and Tara.
We literally thought it was the end of the world. Like literally thought it's the end of the world.
Yeah. And why? I mean, this is what pays to be young. You don't care.
Who else would I want to be with if the world is going to end? Right?
That's exactly how I felt. It was like, oh, this is happening.
So what we did was we played a great game of charades.
Yes,
but it wasn't charades like you think of. It was let's watch Christy act out everything and go hysterical. Doing the charades ourselves, and we just had her picking out of the thing and just watching her, and we are crying. It was hysterical. We literally, we were like making fun of you, kind of, but let's get into our talk today on work-life balance. Is it possible? Is it actually possible to have a balance? What do we like the word balance? So we're just going to talk a little bit about this. What's it like to work and have life in New Zealand compared to the US? I've done both. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then also Christy's going to talk a little bit about her experience, after kids going back to work and figuring that all out.
Yeah, whole nother ballgame.
To have a balance.
Yeah, I don't know. You got to have a lot of coffee.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about you trying to find work again?
Yeah. So I called Tara the other day and I was just letting her know I keep kicking around going back to work full time. And in the US, and we're talking from Wisconsin here because that's all I know. I grew up here. And I have 3 kids, 2 teenagers, and 1 elementary school kiddo. So trying to go back to work full time in the US is super hard because if I take a job, is it going to be flexible enough where so-and-so calls and says, hey, I need you to, this happened, or can you come? No, I can't. I'm stuck doing, whatever. I'm on the line, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing this other thing. So I look at times of the jobs too. Like I really need to work in the school system. Hello, anybody out there? I need to be in the school system.
Right. For the same holidays and days off. Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise a 40-hour work week here is really, honestly, if you're in like corporate, it's from 50 to whatever. Like
it's not,
you don't
40.
even get to, no, it's not 40. If I get a full-time job, I have just added a whole nother job onto the one I currently have at home.
Right.
So the cooking, the cleaning, the grocery shopping, the, organizing the children. So I don't even know if it's worth it. Can you have a work-life balance in the US? It's not looking good. Back in the day when my grandpa was a banker, It was 8 to 5, literally.
Right.
He wore a suit, walked out the house, started at 8, was home by 5, had an hour lunch. Now, because this thing can follow you everywhere, you are on, when you get a blink, you have an email.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and now you got to think about it. Instead of like, it's the weekend, I'm going camping, I'm not doing this. Well, now you're doing it.
Being an American working in New Zealand, it is a lot like your grandfather as a banker. Like it's
Really?
definitely like, you know, in the professional world, you know, I don't work in every type of job, but for me, it's been like, they don't even start till 9 and it's reasonable to be done at 4 or 5. Like that's, to me, when I came here was so noticeably different. Like you would never start later than 8 o'clock in the US.
No.
So let me just tell you about my first experience. It kind of challenged my idea of work. I'm like, oh, I don't start till 9. Like that seemed like so nice. and then I'm working and then they like come and knock on my door. Oh, it's tea time, tea at 10. We go in, which means you can have tea or like a coffee and a little thing. And it's like, what do you mean? I just started working. I've only been working an hour. We're taking a break already.
I would be so successful in New Zealand.
Yeah, it's so fun. And so first it was a struggle for me because I'm like, what?
Wow.
Like, I just got into this. Like, I'm not ready for a break. And then they have like an afternoon tea at 3. And it's like, it's tea time. You know, that's a new thing. And then when you're done, like it's reasonable. Like everybody generally is gone by 5 or so, you know. I mean, sometimes you bring work home, but like the expectation isn't there. And in fact, I get yelled at a lot because we don't want you to work on the weekends.
Oh.
We want you to take your full holiday and we don't want you to work on holiday. Like I get actually lectured about it. Like when you take a break, you need to take a break and you need to not log into work.
Okay, that in and of itself would be like, hallelujah. I mean,
The thing is if I was in the States and I have 4 kids, there's no way I'm working full time.
when you say, okay, I'm going to work full time, like your family kind of has to turn off from, 7 to 6 because you're going and they want the customer service to be this high and they want their job or their product to be your top priority. And I think, like you said, maybe a work-life balance can happen in the US if, depending on your priorities, like you said, you work part-time. Like that's what I do. So I'm a lunch lady currently. Is that my calling? No. Is that even a gift of mine? Not really. I don't even like to cook.
You're such a good cook, Christy.
Thank God they just have me open up canned peas and pour them in plastic bags. They know who they're working with here, okay? I picked that job not because, I have all the skill sets, but because it worked with my priority. My priority is being a mom. So I also worked in corporate America before I had kids, and I did sales and I traveled, and it was fun. I loved the business suits and the high heels, and I always say I traded them in for sweatpants and a ponytail because you get paid so little.
Yeah, so what's minimum wage in the US right now? What's minimum wage?
$7.25 an hour is minimum wage. For Wisconsin as a whole, the average kind of salary is about $60,000 a year. I don't know. I'm curious in New Zealand though, what do they do with like, okay, women who want to work and also have a family? How many days do you get off for FMLA for the family, the leave? Like, I think it's 6 weeks here and it's like, bam, you haven't even slept through the night. Your baby hasn't slept through the night and you're going back to work full time. I couldn't do it. I was like, not doing it, staying home. And I did.
So a couple details about New Zealand. The minimum wage currently is $18.90, FYI.
An hour?
An hour. But with that being said, everything is very expensive here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it kind of evens
right.
out.
So people always ask me to compare, but when I have the privilege of being here, making almost like exactly the same salary with the conversion of the dollar to the New Zealand dollar back, and then we went back to the US making the same exact amount of money. And we ended up coming home with on a monthly basis with more money here because when you take into consideration like food, petrol, gas is very expensive here, but then like there's not as much tax. There's not tax on this and there's not, and the healthcare costs. And like, so at the end of the day, it kind of evened out. So imagine you making now $18.90 an hour. Okay. So yes, there's so many great programs here. In fact, with everything being expensive, most couples do both work to some extent. They don't have to, but they do.
Yeah.
They give you maternity leave. Depending on where you are, it's not uncommon to have a whole year off.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that would be amazing.
Yeah, so you just feel in every capacity supported, that
Yes.
that it's okay to have a family and to make that a priority and still do something that you love on, in whatever capacity makes sense. It's just it's ingrained in this society, and I don't know if it's because we've had a lot of women prime ministers or but it just, you don't get the feel in the States, because the States, the priority is work. So when I come to visit, and I've traveled 18 hours to come visit, and I say, can I see you for one day of the month that I'm here? And they're like, I have to work, and they can't see me. Do you know what I mean? In a whole year, it's because that's the priority. Because that's a reasonable thing to say. If you said that here, that wouldn't be a reasonable thing to say. Like you get like 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks vacation, and you're not really supposed to take it. Whereas here, it's like you get 4 weeks or automatically plus public holidays. It's a national rule. It doesn't matter where you're working. You're getting that much off, and they require that you take at least 2 weeks at a time. Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
And I know there's pockets in the US where there's some really good, where people really understand.
Yes, great companies.
But generally speaking, I would say work is the top priority.
Not the fabric of society. Yeah, it's not the fabric of society.
Killing ourselves working the way we work. And it's so sad because we're all working hard because we're trying to either retire, or you're trying to work enough to provide enough for your kids, provide enough for whoever, for yourself or whatever. And it seems like by the time you finally reach that, you've got some crazy disease from like just being too stressed, where it's like, okay, we got to learn how to like rest, take a break, because weekends aren't even weekends anymore. I don't know about what it's like in New Zealand. Now, obviously, mine are weekends because I have a part-time job. It happens to be through the school system, but majority speaking, they don't. It's not that flexible. You're going to work. If you want to make some good money, you need to work.
Anything that I've learned here is that you need to do things that you enjoy. Life is short. Like, do things that you enjoy, do things that make you happy, prioritize your life the best you can, and don't prioritize stuff. You don't need all of this stuff. You don't need the crap. Figure out what it is that you actually want and do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because we do live in a society where that's possible now.
You nailed it on the head, though. We always think, like with kids, when my kids were little, it was like, oh, if we just had enough money to take them to Disney, if we just had enough money, we could get this, and then we could have. Some of my kids' favorite memories are the fact that we played kickball in the backyard.
Health and safety. They're very concerned about health and safety. So let me tell you, when I have a desk job, I type on a computer all day, and I get a message that I have a health and safety meeting. Now, I used to own a construction company, and so to me, that's the only frame that I would picture health and safety being necessary in construction. I'm like, I'm just working on a job. Like, what health and safety issues? I'm indoors. Do you know what I mean? I don't have to.
Like, I don't need to be tied off. The chair is right here. Yeah,
it's right here, right. So I'm like, I just remember thinking, man, this is weird. I have no idea what to expect. So they came in and they like looked at my desk. They're like, okay, how do you like your desk? It's fine. And they're like, is your chair comfortable? Is it, do you think you can sit in it all day? We want you to get up every hour and go for a little walk. And how's your mouse pad? And how's, and I'm like, are you serious? Well, I could use a little nicer chair, if you're going to ask. And they're like, well, we have all these services. We have these workout classes. And, and I'm like, wow. Like that was I have never experienced before. They're like concerned about me working at a desk.
No, I know. I want to come so bad. I'm like, yes, please sign me up for tea time. Sign me up for a nice chair. The massage guy, girl, whatever. I don't care. Bring them.
So here's a funny story. Let me just tell you one more work story. First interview here. I teach people how to interview, and I can tell you it was the worst interview of all time. Anyway, he's asking me the normal questions, and I say to him, I'm just going to have to stop you right there.
No, you can.
I feel like I'm wasting your time. All of a sudden, I just went 100% honest. I said, I feel like I'm wasting your time. There's no way I could do this job. And I'm feeling really bad right now. And because he was so nice. And he was like, okay, well, why do you feel that way? I'm like, okay, well, for one, my kids are over there. They're done at school at 2:30. Like I'd have to leave here at 2:30 to get there by 3. I have a homeschool. Like, I don't know what I'm thinking. I don't know why I'm here. And he goes, okay. So he was like, literally, he sat down, he broke down all those things to me and says, okay, that's fine. We can have you done at 2:30. Yeah, you can bring your daughter to school. We can give her her own office desk and she can be learning in between your classes. What? Right? So what I'm saying is my frame of reference, that was not possible. You could never bring your kids
to
work, ever. And so I never even thought about that.
It's all like, wow.
I know, they let me take my daughter to work with me.
That is amazing. And again, in the US, there's pockets of that. I had that when I worked at the church. Sophie was only 3. So
you could bring her with you.
I could bring her if I needed to leave quick and take my kid to somewhere. I could drop them off, come right back. It was flexible enough, but corporate, I never could find something in corporate that was flexible enough. Plus they didn't, like you said, they wouldn't even want to have a conversation with you. Like in an interview, as you well know, you never lead with what I can't do. I can't do that. I got children. I can't be here 40 hours now. 10, I could give you 10. You don't lead with that. You just go,
no,
listen, I can
figure it out.
I can learn anything. That's right. I can figure it out.
Oh, that's what we all have
I got it. But that's part of
what women do every day.
You got this. I figured it out. I figured out that microwave. It sounds to me like New Zealand is winning again, but don't worry. We love Wisconsin too.
So I guess the question is, after we've talked about it, is it possible to have a work-life balance? I think in New Zealand, it is possible. Maybe you just need to move out of there.
Right.
And it's not just New Zealand. There's plenty of countries that are,
But it's really true. Like you said earlier, it really is your priority, and move. I think we get so stuck in what we know. Like there are so many options. You can move out of the country if you want. We got so much freedom and so much opportunity now. It's like, just go get it.
The US is really great at that in terms of all these opportunities to do amazing things, Yes. But at what cost is what we kind of talked about. It costs a lot of happiness. We have a lot of stress. We have a lot of stuff, and is that really what we want at the end of the day when we're, because I'm going to live to be 100. When I'm 100, am I going to be happy with that decision?
Right. Well, you actually might live to be 100 because you moved to New Zealand. I will make it to 72.
Subscribe to our channel. We're going to do this show for you if you like it. And we'll talk about all types of differences between New Zealand and the US. And the conclusion today, I'd say, is that you can have work-life balance. I've experienced it. I didn't know it was possible. You don't necessarily need to move to New Zealand, but it's pretty great.
And, and I would say Wisconsin, here we are. We need to work on a little bit of relaxation. Let's get that masseuse.